Could you give a little bit of an overview of how you think that multi-shooter ambush went down, from the number of teams in place to, maybe possible positions they took, how they evaded capture, like whatever comes to mind?
Okay. Um, First of all, you gotta, and I'm gonna parallel this with how we operated. We knew the stage basically. We knew what, for example, we're gonna do a drug raid on a house. We knew what the house looked like. We knew where the bathrooms were because that's where they would dump the drugs. We knew where the windows were. We knew where the doors, how they open. We knew the property before we hit it. In the Kennedy assassination, they decided, whoever they, and when I say they, whoever decided to put this together knew the best places to do an ambush, and they knew the route, and they knew where the cars were going to make the biggest turns. They knew where the least amount of people might be for collateral damage. So they knew that Dealey Plaza, or they determined that Dealey Plaza was the perfect place because they could have people on the same level as the car, or close to the same level as the target. They could have points of access. They could have points of egress. They could have points of escape. They could have uh, their communication system would not be hindered by tall buildings or radio interference or what it might be there. They had access to parking lots. They had access to buildings. They
Mm,
basically decided, here's the best place. Now we got to put our people in place. We have encrypted radio communications. I mean, these guys, the shooters had to have somebody on the radio with them. It was either them, the actual shooters had a radio system, or the spotters who were with them had radios, because there had to be a coordinated effort to ensure that the lone assassin, three shot scenario nonsense would had to be believable by people that were there. And
mm,
so they placed people in front of, to the right side and to the left side in front of the Kennedy car, because, if he stops, if he backs up, if he turns right, we've got people in place to take those contingency plans and adapt as they go on the fly. I mean, it was a fluid operation. Things were changing all the time, but if they controlled how people got access. I mean, you had police officers who were stationed at Elm and Houston for the crowd control, but there was nobody in the buildings. There was nobody in the
mm,
parking lot. There were two officers on the triple underpass. People were standing with the officers on the triple underpass, who the officers didn't know who these people were. Are they railroad workers, or are they part of the team?
mm,
So if you confuse the situation by putting people in places who normally aren't there. For example, you put a cop behind the fence and you keep people back away, and you have somebody who pretends to be a CIA agent or a Secret Service agent and tells people to leave. Then that they did that. So they had everything covered, and they had to know that this situation is critical, that he has to be dead before he gets to the triple underpass. This is our prime prime shooting field. We have to make sure he's dead before he gets under that bridge, because after that he's going to, no, nobody knows how the Secret Service is going to react. Maybe they'll stop and cover him, or they'll speed out of the area. But they knew all those things. They anticipated all those things before they pulled the trigger.
yeah. So this, from your perspective, and with all of your tactical knowledge, this looked like a complex, pre-planned ambush. Like you said, there's multiple teams running.
Yes.
Not all teams know, they don't have the same objective. They have different objectives running in Dealey Plaza. Some are
Yeah.
shooters, some are spotters, and they're probably they've done multiple repetitions of
Yes.
these exercises, if not dozens. I don't know
Yes.
how many repetitions you would run for a tactical operation like this, but I would think it would have to be dozens of times, just so like you have it down over a course of
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. And to me, Zach, the critical part was the speed of the car, because that's where your target's at. And I'm not disparaging President Kennedy's memory, but I'm just saying he's a target when these people are as far as these people are concerned, he's a target.
Yeah.
They had to know that that car is going to go slow enough that they could have a time to put their bullets in, in his body. So somehow, some way, somebody made the decision to slow that car down to about 7 to 10 miles an hour. And from the time they made the turn onto Elm Street from Houston until they got to the triple underpass, according to this testimony of Kellerman and Greer, the Greer was the driver, Kellerman was the passenger Secret Service agent. That car was driving between 10 and 11 miles an hour. Well, I've done the calculations, and from the time if they turn the corner at 11 miles an hour and turn onto Elm Street and get to the triple underpass, that car, the target is in view for almost 30 seconds. That
Mm.
is a lifetime
Yeah.
for a target to be exposed. So the critical part to me was one, changing the motorcade, changing the configuration of the motorcade, putting Kennedy's car as the second car, putting him in a spot where he couldn't stop, and then slowing that car down. Those three key factors, I think, will help enable the assassination to take place. But yeah, these people knew all that before they got there. They knew their distances, they knew the wind direction, they knew the time he was going to show up, they knew where he was going to be sitting in the car, they knew what he was wearing, they knew everything about that situation so that they could be successful.
How difficult is that shot? Because you're going from high to low grounds. You have a moving body in a moving car. It is going the car's going slower, but it's still a moving object. How difficult would that shot be for?
It would have been extremely
Yeah,
difficult, but
yeah.
if you can freeze the target, which a lot of people believe that the shot that hit President Kennedy in the back kind of froze him in position. He couldn't move because he had that back brace on. If you can freeze the target, it's relatively. I mean, it's moderate to difficult, but these people, whoever these people are, have taken these kind of shots before. That's why they used them.
Mm,
But for me, um, I would have I would have considered the high to low shot the most difficult. If there was an assassin in the sixth floor, that's a very difficult shot to do. 9 times out of 10, you're going to hit low. You're going to aim high, and you'll miss the target completely. That's
mm,
why I believe the kill shots were at a lower level, like the street level behind the picket fence, and perhaps the railroad bridge or the triple underpass. I believe there was a shooter up there because
yeah.
you put somebody in front, you put somebody in the side and behind, he can't go anywhere. Um, yeah, high to low is difficult. Uh, Almost same level trajectory is relatively easy.
Mm,
Um, so if you put people as close as possible to the target, most of the shootings that we did practicing were within 100 yards because you didn't have to worry about wind and directions and all the 10 factors involved in shooting. So yeah, they placed the people close to the target.
from a tactical perspective, what are some of the most intriguing parts of the JFK assassination that you think get overlooked? Things that you can see with your trained eye, but other people may not notice about the situation.
Well, one of the things that I always looked at was the radio communication people.
Mm,
There's two pictures, and I'll send those to you so you can show your viewers.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
two pictures that were taken that show civilian people that were wearing civilian clothes. I don't know what their connections were to any entity or group, but they're on radio communicate. They're on a radio walkie-talkie, so they have to be talking to somebody.
Mm,
And they're not police. The police didn't have that capability in '63. Portable radios. I mean, your car radio was stuck in the car. If you got out of the car, you couldn't communicate. And that's segue into Tippett, Officer Tippett. went into the top 10 record store to make a phone call because he couldn't talk over the radio communication, the channel 1 or 2 of the Dallas PD, so he had to go into a private business or a business to make a phone call. Well, Dallas police and the sheriff's department didn't have walkie-talkies or radio communications that were linked to their system back in '63. So these two pictures that we have show two men, two different people using walkie-talkies. So who are they talking to? We don't know. There's someplace somebody is in Overwatch, the guy who's coordinating this shooting, and that's another area that I think is overlooked a lot. Is if radio communications were used, which I believe they had to have been, there had to be somebody who was on the spot in a position to see the entire Dealey Plaza, who used the radio as a controlling the shooting sequence to tell them when to start, when to stop. Uh, if somebody's getting too close to, if somebody's going to breach your security plane, you have to have communication systems. So I think a lot of people forget about, you know, who's coordinating. Well, it's the shot caller who's on the scene. We had one of those. We had a command post set up, and we would have direct communications with our supervisor who would tell us take the shot or not take the shot. I mean, we waited until they told us what to do. A lot of people forget about these guys just weren't shooting just to be shooting. It was a coordinated effort because and it was a sequential so that we can all the witnesses could say, "Oh yeah, it sounded like three shots from behind me or three shots from another place." So that was one of the areas that I thought that needed to be addressed, and that's
Yeah.
why I focused on that in my presentation.